Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
It's actually Monday this week. Welcome to Monday with Jesus and Go
Right.
Tell. And Tom.
Here
and
we
Amelia.
are. I have my COVID curls. And,
well, my hair got so long. I'm wearing it in a braided bun thing in the back. So new hairstyles. Yeah. But we both had our first vaccine, so that's very exciting for us. So I hope all of you are taking all the precautions that you can to stay safe during this pandemic. We're glad you're with us for today's story, which follows on the heels of last week's story in Mark 1. Last week was when Jesus is just beginning his ministry. And so he goes to the synagogue and teaches, and everybody's amazed. And then he casts out this unclean spirit from a man. And so Tom will tell you what happens after that. Take it away, Tom.
Well, what happened? Immediately after he left the synagogue, he entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. And as soon as he entered, Simon's mother-in-law was lying sick with a fever. And immediately they told him about her. And he went in and raised her up, lifting up, picking up her hand, and the fever left her, and she served them. And that evening, they brought to him all those in the city who were sick and possessed with demons. And the whole city was gathered together outside the door. And he healed many with various diseases and cast out many demons. But he would not allow the demons to speak because they knew him. The next morning, while it was still very dark, Jesus got up and went out to a very lonely place and prayed. And Simon and those who were with him hunted for him. When they found him, they said, "Everybody's looking for you." And he said, "Let's go on to the neighboring towns so that I may preach there also, because that's why I came out." So they went throughout all of Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons.
Great. Thank you, Tom. I mentioned the pandemic in our intro, and this story makes me think, all these healings that are going on. You and I were talking, Tom, the other night about how we wished, we wish Jesus were here and would heal all these people that have this virus. But in any case, he did in this story. Apparently, he's remembered his healing just everybody. What was the, just talk about that a little bit, about how he was healing. He's remembered as healing all these people. First of all, Simon's mother-in-law, right? Which is kind of interesting. It sounds like Simon actually had a wife.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, so that's kind of little interesting detail.
And in their little houses, his mother-in-law was living with him. So, that said something about Simon, that he, accepted his mother-in-law into the house. And the healing thing is very distinctive about Jesus in the context of the traditions of Israel. Yahweh is described as healing the nation frequently, especially as in the aftermath of various things of judgment and disaster. But there isn't anything like the centrality of healing in the stories of Jesus. It happens all the time. And throughout Mark, there are stories of his healing. The last thing before he enters Jerusalem, is the healing of blind Bartimaeus. So the stories begin with the exorcism and the healing of Simon's mother-in-law. So this is kind of a small scale healing, but it's one that is wonderfully intimate. And Jesus lifting her up, taking her by the hand. So then everybody apparently heard about, his healing and brought people from all over the town who were sick and who had demons. So this is a marker of what Jesus did. And on that first day, he established his priorities in relation to his administration, his announcing and demonstrating the kingdom of God. And so in the morning, synagogue service. In the afternoon, after the synagogue service, the mother-in-law, and then in the evening, the whole city. So this was a big day, and it clearly indicated the character of Jesus' actions, of his administration as the Messiah.
Yes, the part about the mother-in-law, who doesn't get named, unfortunately, but that's true of so many of the women in the scriptures. But I have another memory about teaching these stories from Mark 1 in a men's prison. And this one, we at the last day, we told this whole, we had a mini epic of this. So each man had picked a piece of this, one of the stories from Mark 1 to tell, and we went around the circle and they told their part. And we came to this story, and the man who was going to tell it asked if he could tell it in street language. And I said, well, that would be great, but first we're going to tell it straight, because part of the deal was that they would learn it, more or less as it is in the Bible, and then then they can improvise on that. So he told it straight, just fine. We kind of finished, and then we went back to him to tell the story. Well, he just had so much fun about, and we all did. I mean, we were about how they left the synagogue and they would have been really, really hungry. And they went to, it's not Peter now, Simon's house, expecting to have this, great meal of chicken and whatever and they were, they're not telling it the way I am. They were telling it in street language, but how they expected this great meal, and here his mother-in-law was sick, so Jesus took care of that, and she got up and served them. It was a wonderful story. We totally all enjoyed, and was a way that they had really connected with this story,
right,
in a major way. So then there, like you said, first she gets healed, and then all these people come. I guess the word must have got out that she got healed so quickly. Then all these people came. It was almost like a mass movement or something. Is Mark trying to tell us something about that?
Well, he certainly is. It is an instance of, if you think of this as a political campaign, he first, does this highly public thing in the synagogue, then privately takes care of Simon's mother-in-law. Then this whole crowd comes out, and so he demonstrates then the character of the kingdom of God by healing people. I don't know. It's a great story, and so Mark launches this with a whole lot of energy, and so
because everything's immediately right. Yeah,
right.
That does create a lot of energy.
So no slow stories here. Right. This is
one thing happens right after another. But Jesus not only healed people of various diseases, but he also cast out demons. And right. I think didn't you say that the demons, he told them he wouldn't let them speak because they knew him.
Yeah.
What does it mean that they knew him?
Well, it's an indication that in the spirit world, where the conflict was happening, the spirits knew him and recognized him as an adversary and as one who was a threat to their power. And so the notice is the demons knew him. They knew what he was doing and who he was. And so the conflict is identified immediately, as was demonstrated in the morning in the synagogue.
Yeah, well, what did Jesus think they might say, and why didn't he want them to say anything?
Well, he told the demon in the synagogue to be silent. And the reason was for his commanding them to be silent was that they would create trouble. Their spirit would generate turmoil and trouble. It's like they would be inciting people to a riot, inciting people to violence, attacking people, casting out, spirits, evil spirits. We know what that is. We have seen that. The kind of that a crowd can become possessed by a spirit that drives them then to things that they would not ordinarily do. And so, we've seen that with the occupation of the Capitol, how a spirit can seize a crowd. And Jesus wants to calm things down. He doesn't allow those spirits to get loose.
Okay, so it wasn't so much with regard to him that they may say something about him that he wanted them to be quiet. He wanted them to be quiet so they wouldn't cause any trouble. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What does healing mean in this story?
Well, it's the word that is used, and the translation in the NRSV is cured many, but the word is therapeuo, which from which we get therapy. So that therapeuo has come into English and as therapy. And it also, that the root we also have thermos, thermal. It has to do with heat. And so therapeuo is the heat of healing. And what's significant about that word is that it is indicative of the energy that Jesus set loose in the world, an energy of healing everybody. So what was characteristic of Jesus' ministry was that regardless of their status, Jesus would heal them, would pay attention to them, would listen to them. Mm-hmm. And so the various kinds of therapy that we have now, physical therapy, psychological therapy,
right.
Touch therapy, therapeutic touch. Jesus was doing all that. He was, and his energy then was characteristic of the movement that was generated by his ministry. Mm-hmm. And so his followers established hospitals. So it's no coincidence that the hospitals in Dayton were all started by churches. Good Sam was Roman Catholic. Miami Valley was established by Presbyterians and Lutherans. Kettering Hospital and the Kettering Health Network was established by Seventh-day Adventists. All the major hospitals in Dayton were established and developed by groups who followed Jesus' example and were inspired by his therapeutic actions to initiate that and do that for everybody. So the practice of Good Sam, for example, which has tragically been torn down.
All right, now let's go there. One of our locals.
Right, just a mile away.
Sadnesses.
Magnificent hospital, because of our for-profit healthcare system, was torn down in the midst of a predominantly Black community. So these kinds of things are, it's just ridiculous. Anyhow.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to interrupt you. Let's talk a little bit about, were there precedents for Jesus's healing ministry in the history of Israel?
Well, there were precedents. Elijah and Elisha in Luke 4, those are established, that he healed the son of a woman in Phoenicia, that he healed the general of the Assyrian army, Naaman. So there are precedents, but those were one-time things. Jesus did it all the time. Mm-hmm. So it was a characteristic of his ministry as a prophet to care for and heal people.
Yeah, great. Okay, after these healings, well, first it was the synagogue, the cleansing of the man, who had the unclean spirit, and then from his mother-in-law, and then all these people came to the house. So then I guess very early in the morning, Jesus goes out and he prays. Talk about that a little bit for us.
Well, it's another dimension of his recognition of and entering into spiritual conflict that he recognized that his power was dependent on the power of God. And so he went out to be in touch with and to pray as a way of listening to, opening himself to God's Spirit. And then it was in that energy that he told the disciples when they came, let's go to the neighboring towns that I may preach there also. Yeah. And so then he went out and went about all of Galilee, preaching and casting out demons. So he carried on this ministry, this action on behalf of the energy of the kingdom of God.
You've already touched on some of the ways in which this story relates to issues of justice today. Do you want to talk about that any further?
Yes. There is in Jesus' ministry a model for the United States, for the world, for people. That is that everybody deserves health care. So Jesus cared for everybody. Anybody who came and asked him, he healed them. He paid attention to them. And so the tragedy of the current healthcare system in the United States is that it depends on your ability to pay. And a lot of people are not able to get healthcare because they can't afford it, because they don't have enough money. And so most of the countries of the world, all of the major industrialized countries, Japan, Germany, Britain, France, Russia, and to a significant degree, China, have universal health care. They have followed Jesus' model. In the United States, not so. So the issue of justice is that justice in the United States means universal health care and following Jesus' model and Jesus' inspiration to establish health care for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Tom. All right. Everybody have a really good week.
You're right. Stay well.
Yes, do.
Right.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.